Hey everybody, I'm Jason, and this is the world famous. Who am I kidding? It's Jay's Project Garage. It's like 2:30 in the afternoon. I've been working outside. It's hot. I came in the shop, sat in front of the fan for about 15 minutes to cool off. Been working on the power for the house. Um, and here in just a little bit, I'm going to be teaching my daughter how to back a trailer up. That should be entertaining. But in this episode, I'm going to show you some other ways to play detective on figuring out what year and what you've got as far as Ford engines are concerned. So let's get to the lame action. 302, 351, 302, 351. If you can get to that bolt with a ratchet and a socket, then it's a 351 Windsor. If it's down behind the water pump, and the only way you get to it was with a wrench, 289 302. Like this. You see that bolt? How it's down behind the water pump? 289 302. Windsor Casting Plant, 351. Cleveland Foundry. You get a lot of guys that call them these things 302 Windsors. Almost none of these things were even cast at the Windsor plant, and they were never called a 302 Windsor. Now, in Australia, I don't know what things are like there, where they had the Cleveland that ran all the way up until 82. And they did have a 302 Cleveland. Not sure if they had these, so there may have been a designation there, but there never was here. Another way you can tell is valve covers. When the 221 was first introduced in mid 1961, it first started being installed in cars for the 62 model year, all the way up into through the 260s and the 289, it used this valve cover. I don't even have one of those, believe it or not. But in that valve cover ran all the way up into 1967, and that's when Ford started putting emissions stuff. So they started dabbling in emission controls on cars because of those wacky Californians that wanted clean air. Silly. So they had to make a valve cover with provisions for PCV. And since it was the total performance era, they had to come up with something cool. So they brought out the Power by Ford valve covers. Now the early ones, they had tubes that stood off, and they just had breathers on each one. This one had a tube that came off of it and went to the air cleaner on one side, and it had a PCV valve on the opposite side. So you know, if you have these, they're 67. They're starting out at 67. So if you've got you got an engine that's never been apart, or that you can tell it's never been apart, and it has these valve covers on it, you can tell it's at least mid 67 and newer. And they use this valve cover all the way up through the 70s, and I don't remember exactly when the cutoff was. I'm kind of thinking it's when they went to the two-piece, or to the one-piece rear main seal in 80, 81, somewhere in there. There was like a changeover. They were using all the rest of the old two-piece rear main seal blocks as the one-piece rear main was coming out. And that's also when they switched from 28 ounce to 50 ounce imbalance on the 302. The 351 was always 28 ounce imbalance from 69 all the way through the end of production in 97, I think. But after that Power by Ford valve cover, they went to this one, where all it had was a Ford script. That was it. So that was from the early 80s all the way up into deep into the 90s. This actually came off of a 96 truck engine. So this valve cover was around for a long time. And then they came out with this one. I don't know exactly why they did a design change. I don't know if it had to do with induction, or, I mean, I'm sure there was a really good reason. Other than there being less metal in this one and it's saving money. I mean, Ford's famous for their bean counters and cutting corners, but this one came out in the early 90s. The first time I ever saw one was on a 94 Mustang GT. So 94, 95 Mustangs with the 5-liter would have this valve cover, and it was also used on in the Explorer. So if you're looking for a 5-liter with the GT40P 4-bar heads or the GT40 3-bar heads, you're going to look for an engine that's got these valve covers on it. I don't think they ever use these in trucks. I think they stuck with the Ford script, but I could be wrong. These valve covers, 86 to 93 Fox Body Mustang 5-liter. So if you see an engine that has one of these on it, it's probably a Fox Body 5-liter, and you can be sure that it's a roller motor. Now all of this is only if you know the valve covers have never been off the engine. But guys swap these things around all the time. So if you can tell the thing's been apart and there's RTV gooped all over the place and you can see aftermarket gaskets, then you have to start pulling numbers, and we'll look at that here in just a few minutes. So the 302 ran in the Mustang until 78, and then Ford brought out the 255 V8, and holy smokes, talk about underpowered. But they were doing everything they could for emissions. They were trying to make a little bit of power. They were trying to get better fuel economy. They were trying to lower NOx emissions. It was a shot in the dark, and it didn't work. Ford tried the same thing with the 260, or Chevy tried the same thing with the 267 small block. Didn't really make any power. I mean, it fit the bill for a V8, but I don't. But luckily, the 302 did come back in the Fox body, and starting in '84, they used these valve covers. So that valve cover would have been 84, 85. Cast aluminum, said powered by Ford. That was a 2-year only thing, and then starting in '86, they used the other style cast aluminum ones. Okay, so in my last video, we talked about the E7TE and what that meant. So we know it's an '87 truck engine. But that doesn't tell you exactly when it was made. That's just the version of this casting. But if you look at the date code, you see an OC5. So it's not going to be 1980, because they wouldn't have cast this block before '87. So you can play detective, and I'm going to say that's 90. So 1990, the second one is the month. So January is A, February is B, and March is C. So we know it was cast in March of 1990, and this is the day of the month. So March 5th, 1990. So that makes it pretty easy. We know this is a 1990 engine. Now, if you see these dials, I'm pretty sure, I'm not 100% positive, but I'm pretty sure these are just batch and shift numbers. But if I'm wrong, somebody correct me. So this is a 1968. You see C8, 68 302 4-barrel head. See how many intake bolts it has? Now starting in 1969, this is a 1970 actually 351 Windsor head, but you can see it has 2 intake bolts here, or yeah, intake bolts. So the early ones had 12 intake bolts. The 6970 351 Windsor had 14 intake bolts. And that is 6970 only. And then they went back to 12. I don't really know exactly why they did this. I don't know if they had coolant leak issues in development, or I'm not 100% positive. It's just kind of a weird feature of those. Another fun tidbit is these heads didn't actually change a whole lot until 1974. So if you're looking for the 6970 Windsor heads, you can kind of expand your search a little bit, because the all the way up until the D4 cylinder heads are going to be pretty much the same. Now, just to clarify that last part, the 302 always had 12 intake bolts. It was only the Windsor that had the 14. And you can actually use the 12 bolt intake on the old 14 bolt heads.
You won't have any coolant leaks, and it'll work just fine. I've done it 100 times. Now, I keep saying E7TE, so 87 truck engine. That's not the only, obviously not the only thing they used it in. Those blocks and cylinder heads were used in pretty much throughout the entire line. I've never seen another casting number for that generation of 5-liter. So if you see something that says truck part, don't just automatically assume that that means that that's the only thing they used it in. If you've ever watched 5.0 Tussin, you know E7TE heads and E7TE blocks were the mainstay throughout the run of the Fox Body Mustang all the way up until 93.
Man, it's hot. This is my second t-shirt of the day. It's scorching outside. I've gotten quite a bit of stuff done so far, and I still have a lot to do. I got to mow, and the most fun part of the day so far is I got lit up by hornets. I got stung 3 times. I'm not dead yet, so I guess I'm gonna be okay. But I think I found their nest. I might just go spray it and get stung again like an idiot. But I think that's gonna do it for this video. Make sure you like and subscribe. Like I've said in a couple other videos, I'm gonna start giving away my parts hoard. I got a lot of stuff. As soon as I get to 100 subscribers, stuff's gonna start flying off the shelves for free. I'm even gonna pay for shipping. And the thing is if you can figure out the movie quote in each video, starting when I get to 100 subscribers, I'll start doing that. But if you can figure out the movie quote in every video, and you're the first to comment, you get whatever I'm giving away for that video. So I got a lot of stuff. I got tons. And I got a lot of other projects I got going on. We still got a lot to do to the 69 before it goes to paint. I want to get started on my 91 GT, and my wife's really been bugging me about the Model A. We may just have to drag it out and get started on it. I'm going to wind up building a new frame for it. I never did like the way the previous owner set it up. It sits too low. The rear tires wind up being over the top of the deck lid. I just don't like the look. So we're going to change it up. It's going to be Ford powered. Don't know if it's going to be an automatic or a manual. Really leaning towards an automatic. Kind of got big feet, and there's not a whole lot of room under the cowl on those things for 3 pedals. Not saying it can't be done, but you know, if I'm going to build something to drive, I kind of want it to be halfway comfortable. So, but make sure you get out in the shop, work on your projects. You guys have a great day, and I will see you next week.